For me, growing up in the 70s, I was pretty much soccer nonstop. That's all I did. I was alcfodio, which is like a form of high comp. I don't think they call it alcfodio anymore. 6 years old all the way up to 16. That's just was soccer life until about 1983, 1984, when my friend Mike hopped across the street from me, came out with this bike, and he had his full kit on. I'd never seen that before, so I had no idea what the heck with these black spandex and this little tight jersey with the pockets and the whole 9 yards was. I remember oodling at his Specialized Alley that the American Flyers movie kind of made popular, the movie with Kevin Costner. I would check out his, how smooth the parts were, and he had, I remember he had sew-ups and the glue, and his dad had a truing stand, and he taught me about truing, and just, I really felt like I was really delving into it. It really piqued my interest. I watched the '84 Olympics. We did really well in the '84 Olympics. I, got kind of interested a little bit about track and the velodrome, and would go out on training rides. So I was already in pretty good shape. I was a small guy, and I enjoyed climbing. So I just kind of got into the scene a little bit by going down to the local bike shops. As time went on, I got to know different people like Mike Stewart. We became friends back in 1985, 86. I would go into his shop. He worked at Livermore Schwinn. And I remember how cool it was that Mike would just let us sometimes, if there was an open stand, he'd let us just bring a bike in and clamp the bike down and work on our own bikes. And so we kind of developed a friendship. My freshman year, I took French because I was into the Tour de France. And my teacher, Monsieur Heath, was a cyclist. And he found out I was a cyclist. So he started bringing in cycling magazines from France that he had, I don't know how he had a subscription to, but he did. It was called Miroir du Cyclisme. And that was obviously all in French. So I couldn't really read it too well. But the pictures were amazing. And then, of course, Winning magazine was at all of the local bike shops. And that's when I really started seeing these amazing, iconic pictures of Alpe d'Huez and all these places and all over the world and the famous climbs. Got into being a big fanboy of Andy Hampsten, Greg LeMond, and all of our, the American 711 team or North American 711 team. Went and got an upgraded bike, a Trek 400. It wasn't very good, but it was what I could afford. But I really enjoyed riding up Mount Diablo. Mount Diablo was just, it still is one of my favorite climbs. Something about it. Something about going back and forth and going on a switchback, and then you look down and you just see what you just did. You kind of see where you came from. It's something I gravitated to. It's something I can't explain. I started racing a lot more, and Mike Stewart and I would go to the Early Bird Crits in Fremont, California. He got a team together. We had jerseys. We were sponsored and had Lake shoes, and that was really cool. And going to be moving into senior category 3s. But then I found rock and roll, that whole scene in life of being a roadie and going to the clubs with thrash metal and stuff like that. So I kind of started swaying to that direction. Then San Jose Sharks came and hockey gained my attention. The bike just kind of ended up going to the garage. Over the years, life happened. I opened up a hockey rink, opened up a hockey store. Fast forward from my days of being, 150 pounds in 1986 to 2006, 20 years later, I went up to 285. Through the Tour de France, Lance Armstrong kind of piqued my interest back into cycling. I thought about getting the old bike and start riding again to try to lose some weight. So now I'm using my Luc Bernardino from 1987, 20 years later, and I'm still down tube shifting. I'm out on the road one day on Mines Road, big burly beard, heavy guy. I hear a noise coming up from behind me. I look behind me, I see this guy jamming along, and I kind of look. He pulls up next to me and says, "Hey, what's up?" And I'm all, "Hey, what's up?" And then we do a double take, and it's Mike Stewart. So 20 years had passed, and so we start talking and kind of rekindled our friendship. I got myself in a little better shape, went to Maui, and I saw Mount Haleakala, and I was still 240 pounds, but I decided, I wanted to try to ride Mount Haleakala 0 to 10,000 feet. It took me about 4 or 5 months to train, but I was so stoked that day was one of the best days of my life. And I rode from Paia to the top of Mount Haleakala, 0 to 10,000 feet, 36 miles, nothing but climbing. I remember calling my dad and started kind of crying a little bit because it was so emotional to make it to the top. You know, COVID hits in 2020, and I really started thinking about, you know, how fast life is going by. And I started thinking about all of those epic climbs that I wanted to do as a youngster, and how could I make a trip of just doing 2 weeks in Europe of climbing. It just popped into my head, and I started seeing on Instagram all the pictures of, and I started following Mike Cotty on the Cole Collective and watching his videos. And I just started to get inspired to like thinking about this would be a bucket list trip. So I got a podcast together with Mike Stewart and another couple friends. We started talking one day, and I was like, man, I keep on having this idea about like just doing 2 weeks in Europe of all the epic climbs. You know, park at the base, do the climb, drive to the next place the next day, and so on. And he thought that was a really cool idea because he'd always wanted to do the same. I said, well, hey, let's try to do it in June or July of 2023. So this is, again, right around December of 2021. And I said, I'll be ready. If you can go, I will lose weight. I will work hard and guarantee you that I will be in really good shape by that time. And I didn't want him to think that he's just going to go to these rides and be like waiting for an hour at the top of the climb for me. So if I could even make those climbs, he talked to his wife, and I talked to my fiance Kristen, and with their loving support to do this journey, talking to Mike about, you know, when should we pull the trigger on getting tickets. And right around like October, we saw a really good deal. It was like $600 round trip to Milan. And then in November, we made an appointment to get our passports. And now those have come. And now it's just basically up to me and Mike to put in the work to be ready in basically 5 months to do this epic journey. And I'm super stoked. I'm super motivated. I'm in a good groove right now with my training. And I'm feeling confident that in 5 months I'll be in the best shape that I've been in since I raced.